Michael Schellenberger has been raising the alarm on this for quite a while. And what he's been saying, and I have no cause to doubt it, is that what's happened in Scotland with the hate crime law that just passed is part of an effort worldwide by intelligence services to limit speech, to get control over speech. So it has come into force. Now it is active.
Scotland has a new hate crime law. Why is it so controversial?
One of the most contentious pieces of legislation passed by the Scottish Parliament.
Hate Crime and Public Order Act.
It is set to be a shambles from day one.
Those who experience hatred tell me they don't just want warm words from their politicians, they want action.
It's not just politicians who are arguing about it. J.K. Rowling, Elon Musk, even a hate monster have been dragged in.
Because the hate just hangs about like a bad smell.
The law creates a crime of stirring up hatred relating to age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, or being intersex. Racial hatred's included too, but that was already illegal under an old law. Another part of the new law is about crimes aggravated by prejudice. So if I punch you in the face while calling you an old bag, that might be assault aggravated by age-related hatred. So what's the problem?
It's a recipe for disaster if police officers are not trained properly. Members of the public might not understand the law properly.
Critics say police are going to end up investigating floods of complaints about social media posts, making people afraid to speak their mind. But supporters say the law does contain safeguards. For example, it talks about a right to offend, shock, or disturb.
There are, of course, protections of freedom of expression, freedom of speech explicitly within the bill.
There is one more row. It does not protect women as a group from hatred. The Scottish Government says a separate misogyny law is on the way to do that.
What? You know, I mean,
women
do not need protection. It's not like people are walking around randomly punching them in the head or anything.
We should have an exchange
Why
program,
do women need?
Where we send our New York women punchers over there?
We really should let them deal with that.
But why is that guy Hamza Youssef? Is he like the prime minister? How do you have a guy named Hamza Youssef as the prime minister of Scotland?
Oh,
that's the guy complaining about it's too white here. It sounds like Longshanks from Braveheart. Because the problem with Scotland, there's too many Scots.
Well, this law can actually criminalize you expressing this kind of speech.
I just asked why he's there
in your living room. So
it seems like a difficult law to enforce, though, given that it's almost impossible to understand what any of these people are saying. I couldn't even. I can barely understand anything on the video.
Yeah.
So we should have done this. We should do this on Due Dissidence. I have the Scotty sound drop. So Scotland's new hate crime laws come into force with J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk among its critics. The Harry Potter author and owner of social media platform X both claim the legislation could harm free speech. Senior police officers say they expect a flood of complaints about online posts. But the Scottish government insists the law provides protection from hate and prejudice without stifling individual expression. Quote, I'm not even going to try that. I think there has been a lot of misinformation about the legislation, said the Victims and Community Safety Minister, Siobhan Brown, before going on to claim inaccurately that it was passed unanimously by MSPs in 2021. In fact, the law was approved by 82 votes to 32, with 4 abstentions after heated debate about its content. The Hate Crime and Public Order Act 2021 creates a new crime of stirring up hatred relating to age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, transgender identity, or being intersex.
What does that mean? That's a metaphor.
The maximum penalty is a prison sentence of 7 years. 7
Stirring up hatred.
years. A person for a non-physical speech crime. A person commits an offense if they communicate material or behave in a manner that, quote, that a reasonable person would consider to be threatening or abusive, unquote, with the intention of stirring up hatred based on the protected characteristics. The bar for this offense is lower than for the other protected characteristics, as it also includes insulting behavior, and as the prosecution need only prove that stirring up hatred was likely, rather than intended.
Well, that goes against what they were saying about free expression.
Well, of course. I mean, just looking through this, what it looks like to me is the law is designed with such vagueness that it gives the state the option to lock up really whoever they want, right? Wow. It's a question of how you want to interpret their speech. This potentially, if you have on your phone something that they consider hateful, even if you don't share it, you can be put on trial.
No, I love that part.
You can be locked up for up to 7 years in your own house. If you say something that could be construed that way, you can be locked up for up to 7 years. So when you look at how this is phrased, I mean, I believe Schellenberger, he's a good reporter. I believe he's right.
Of course.
This is designed to be so vague that it's all in the eye of the beholder, and the beholder being the state. If you're in good standing with the state, they're not going to enforce this against you in this way.
Right.
If you are somebody they want to put away, they're going to go with the other interpretation.
Right.
It just gives them basically unlimited power to lock up anyone
it's like being
whose speech they don't like.
In China, that's how it is. Like if they like you, they're not going to crack down, but they might choose to at a later date if you've done something else. In fact, China probably has more
that's
solid
why
law.
Before my trip there next year, I'm doing my 7-part series, China, 5,000 Years of Glory. In England and Wales, stirring up hatred over race, religion, or sexual orientation by threatening behavior remains illegal. The hate crime law in Scotland includes more protected characteristics. Supporters of the new law point out that it contains safeguards designed to protect freedom of speech. For example, it states that it is a defense for a person charged with stirring up hatred to show that their actions were reasonable. Yes, but how do you show that? That is in the eye of the beholder. That is not a legal standard.
Who am I going to show that
Show
to?
your actions were reasonable. Who decides?
The crazy person that came up with this law?
Exactly. Exactly. That's who you're going to be facing. What if you're facing a jury of gender studies majors?
Wow.
All right. What is their idea going to be of
reasonable? It's a good thing there's lots of guns in America. I never thought that before, but this is the kind of crap they pull when people aren't armed to the teeth.
We're on Rumble, right?
Yeah. No, this is what they pull. All those hillbillies were right that I was like, well, you need a gun because of this. This is why.
It also, we also have a First Amendment. It also, none of this would ever clear.
We couldn't protect it without these maniacs with guns. Courts. It's a fact.
It also references the right to freedom of expression in Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which includes protection for ideas that offend, shock, or disturb.
You know what that protects? That protects if you want to teach kids about dildos and shit. That's what that protects.
Actually, you got a point. That is probably how it would be exercised. To be convicted of a hate crime, quote, you have to be really threatening and really abusive, and there has to be reasonable assumption from others that is the case, said Ms. Brown. Okay, we're living in a world where the kind of people who would favor a law like this have coined the phrase, speech is violence.
Yeah.
Okay, so how you're going to let people who think this is a good idea decide what a reasonable assumption is?
Reasonable
These are not people who have reasonable judgment about things like that.
You're in a danger zone, pal.
As well as the offense of stirring up hatred, the Hate Crime Act also consolidates the existing law on crimes which are aggravated by prejudice.
The stirring up hatred, by the way, that's like in the Bible. What they accuse Jesus of, stirring up the priest. What is stirring up? What the hell does that mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. All these phrases are vague enough that you can exercise them against anyone for any reason. Virtually.
I was brutally stirred, officer.
These are where an offender demonstrates malice or ill will towards their victim based on a protected characteristic, which can be taken into account by a sheriff or judge with a longer sentence or a higher fine than would otherwise have been the case. For example, if an assailant punched someone in the face, say in New York City, while also making a hateful comment about their age, that might be assault aggravated by age-related hatred. Adam Tompkins, I mean, it's amazing. Look. There was more dissent than that woman claimed. She lied about it being unanimous, but it's insane that you got a 2/3 majority to
the real
vote
vote's
for something
crazy.
like
That's
this.
right. Yeah.
Adam Tompkins, professor of public law at Glasgow University and a former conservative MSP, voted against the bill because it could see someone convicted of stirring up hatred for a comment they make in private in their own home, not just in public. Quote, and I just don't think that's where the criminal law belongs. Susan Smith of For Women Scotland, which campaigned against recent proposed changes to gender law, is not convinced. Quote, the tests are quite woolly, and we don't know how people are going to interpret this, she told BBC News. We do anticipate that there will be a lot of malicious complaints, a lot of rather trivial complaints, and potentially people who are investigated will see their lives upended. Quote, I imagine there will be many complaints, for example, made against J.K. Rowling, she added. Ms. Rowling, a prominent critic of some transgender activism, described the law as ludicrous in a defiant post on X last month. Mr. Musk has cited discussion about the legislation as an example of why it is so important to preserve freedom of speech. Vic Valentine of the charity Scottish Trans, oh God, what they probably took the other side, right? Oh, no. Said the organization supported the law because of the, quote, serious impact that hate crime can have on LGBTI people. I'm telling you, every time I cover this subject, they've got a different group of letters. I just covered this shit the other day. It was different.
Dude, the flag's been updated. Have you seen it? Now it doesn't have just the arrow like fucking in the ass. It's got the other arrow coming in.
Now it's got another arrow.
It's getting spit roasted now.
Well, that... Okay, so speaking of J.K. Rowling, as you might expect, she had a lot to say about this. And okay, you know, it's great that she is using her platform and her power to take a stand, but this is what people forget about Rowling because she has become a champion in this area. Remember, until this came up, she was a lib in good standing.
She was all for censorship.
She is a total liberal. So she's only focused on this one area. So she's offering to help anybody who gets accused in this area, right? Is she going to stand up and help people who get accused for saying from the river to the sea of hate crime? I don't think so. She was a liberal in very good standing until she took a stand on this issue. So here's Rowling. Scotland's Hate Crime Act comes into effect today. Women gain no additional protections, of course, but well-known trans activist Beth Douglas, darling of prominent Scottish politicians, falls within a protected category. So let's take a closer look at that. Now, listen, this is not an aberration. There are entire sites where you can see trans activists making violent threats.
Well, that's why it's okay. This is the part that's okay.
But they face no consequences. Right. I heard you all hate trans women, knives, and axes. Love from Glasgow. And you can see her there holding an axe. It's been real, you all. I'm going to sleep. Hopefully when I wake up, it's good news. Be nice to yourself. Remember to breathe. And if you need some time out, take it. I love how she incorporates the pop psychology with the threat of hacking people up with an axe.
This is a horror movie.
Lastly, if it all goes tits up or whatever the result, direct action gets the goods and you can take the change by force. This is literally a trans person threatening to hack people up with an axe.
Yeah.
Is this speech protected?
Yes, it is.
Is this?
That's what they were.
I mean, personally, I believe that speech should be protected as long as it's not directly threatening anybody. But it seems like under this law, it wouldn't be. But I bet you they're going to go after
That's what they carved
people
out
like
in the law.
J.K. Rowling. Okay, so somebody says here, of course, they won't go after someone that has the means to defend themselves. They will target people that can't until it becomes common enough to target you. Now, this is in response. Rowling had said basically, yeah, come for me, motherfuckers.
That's good she's doing that.
But now she says, if they go after any woman for simply calling a man, I'll repeat that women's words and they can charge us both at once. So that is great. But like I said, I very much doubt she's going to do that for somebody who might get arrested for being pro-Palestine. This is her issue. This is it. This is, as far as I know, this is the only area where she breaks from liberal orthodoxy or liberal politics. I'm glad she's doing it. And that was the beginning of a thread where she released various cases of trans women being violent, going and assaulting women in prisons and so on. So that was just the beginning of of an entire thread like that. I'm glad she's drawing attention to that, but this has far-reaching implications way beyond her pet issue that I don't think pro-Palestine protesters are going to have an obvious figure like J.K. Rowling that they would be terrified to take on.
There's no such thing as that.
So First Minister Humza Yousaf hits back at criticism of Scotland's new hate crime laws from Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. Brands both right-wing actors. Well, that settles it. You don't have to take them on.
What does that even mean?
You don't have to argue with their arguments. You don't have to debate them. You can just call them right.
So we're not even supposed to have two wings? But like they're not. Like Joe Rogan's not, I tell you that.
Preaching to the choir, man.
But like how... That's all you have to say? Oh, he's right-wing.
Well, that's
You mean the other valid thing to vote for according to your two-party system you said I have to have?
Well, because they're voters, the people who would actually support people like this, that's all you have to say to them. Like, why? I mean, that's all. Keaton, you have anything?
Well, no. I mean, look, as you said, if this extends to speech in the privacy of your own home, it's obviously a very dangerous law. Come to think of it, I hope Jimmy doesn't have any dates in Scotland, does he? Right? Because they can go after you. For any,
does he have dates in
jokes?
Scotland?
Can they nail you for COVID jokes? Is that illegal? I don't know. Yeah, no. Look, it's we talked about this on our show a while back when the Schellenberger piece came out. Yeah, this is what happens when you don't have a codified First Amendment. I mean, these are some of the steps that can be taken. As we've seen, you can restrict speech even with a First Amendment. There are workarounds, but when you were talking to people on the streets of London outside the Day X hearings, they said, there have been major speech infringements all across the UK.
Yeah,
in recent
regularly.
months. Yeah, I mean, this prosecution of a journalist for doing journalism is really something that they're doing at our request. That's not really a UK action.
Speaking of Assange.
Yes, exactly. They are facilitating our action in that. So it shows you how guilty we are and how much we are capable of ignoring our own First Amendment. But they said even outside of that, there have been several attacks on freedom of speech there, up to and including when George Galloway won his race. You had Rishi Sunak come out immediately after and talk about how terrifying that was and how you have a right to protest, but you don't have a right to project tropes onto Big Ben. There was a trope. There was they put this sort of
they were doing projections.
Yeah, onto Big Ben. Stop bombing Gaza. Ceasefire now. Yes. He said that's a trope,
which I actually filmed personally. We used that in our segment.
People. That's right. Stop bombing people. Ceasefire now.
That's
an anti-Semitic trope, apparently.
Yes, that's very
anti-Semitic.
And he
said you can't do that. That's you're not allowed to do that. So there you go. I mean, it's a very dangerous thing.
Well, what's really dangerous about this, and this is what Schellenberger is really arguing, this is a backdoor way to censor everybody.
Of course.
Because if you do it in Scotland and you do it, I understand there's something like this in Canada that's hasn't been passed, but that they're contemplating. Well, social media companies are not going to tailor their content country by country. They're going to wind up tailoring it to the limitations of these countries and then just making those universal. So it's a way of getting around our First Amendment in regards to how these social media companies function in America, because they're just going to create one algorithm that satisfies those rules, and then we're going to be subject to it as well. That's what he's saying.
They used to change
the end game is from the intelligence services behind this.
They can do that because they do it currently for like the Saudis in India. They'll make different rules for other countries. So they could make different rules, but this is the way to not have to make different rules.
Right.
And especially every liberal dipshit I knew, and you see them all the time. It's not censorship, and the government does it.
All of a sudden, I know they're all fucking libertarians when it comes to this issue.
Well, a private company,
all of a sudden,
Unless
they don't feel government should intervene
unless
in the marketplace.
Elon lets you talk on his thing. Unless Elon doesn't even go full free speech, just a little bit more free speech. Then all of a sudden, your government needs to step in.
Exactly.
Please get ass cancer. Anybody that feels that way. I pray to the God of the Hebrews that everyone who says that dies of ass cancer. Please, God.
You know, I don't think we can top that. I think that's the button right there. Ass cancer. That's how we're going to title this in the thumbnail.
Hey, there's still tickets available in Stockholm, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Edmonton, Alberta, Vancouver, British Columbia, Denver, Ashland, Virginia, and Athens, Georgia. See you there.